it's time to sit back and relax with your favorite drink. And listen. I'm an urban legend in my city, by Dogman 35. Let me make this clear. I'm not a monster, or a serial killer, or any kind of supernatural paranormal entity. I'm just a guy. Seriously. Well, I'm invisible, or maybe imperceptible is a better word for it. I've spent a long time looking for the right way to describe it. I am, for all intents and purposes, almost completely invisible, inaudible, and unable to be noticed by another living soul. It's very hard to sum it up in a single word like that. Yeah, you probably don't believe me. Maybe you'll call me crazy. Tell me to reach out, get some help. But I'm not crazy. I have no way of proving it, but I'm not just inventing all of this in my mind. I've tried anything and everything I can of to catch someone's attention or to find a way to fix this. I started off small, just called a few people, tried to talk to them. Then I listened as each and every one of them hung up on me. They must have thought that they just couldn't hear me, or that I dialed them by accident, or even that I was just messing with them. Then I went to see them in person. My friends, my dad. People who had no reason or right to ignore me like that. Let me think that I was losing my mind. And from there, it just escalated. I panicked, and in that panic, I did some stupid things. Jumped in people's faces, screamed until my throat was sore, banged pans together, shoved and pushed people, went into total strangers' houses uninvited. None of it worked. Nothing. Not even the slightest reaction out of people. I tried wearing a sheet, as ridiculous as that might sound in hindsight. But whatever I touch just seems to stop existing in people's heads too. I even punched a guy in the face, hard enough to knock him down on his ass. Someone walking in the street. I was so angry that he wouldn't just say something to me, acknowledge my existence. You know what he did? Just got back up and went about his day. Off down the street, like a homeless man hadn't just attacked him. And yes, I am homeless now. My asshole of a landlord didn't even so much as call the police when I up and disappeared. This all makes me sound really bad. Just pure crazy. But you have to understand the state of mind I was in. All of this, everything I just talked about, was mostly in the first couple of weeks. Desperation driving me to insanity. And I've calmed down now. Sort of. I guess I got used to it. For about 2 years, I've watched as people's eyes just glaze over the moment I walk into a room. I don't think most people would notice, even if they saw it from the outside. It's not a big change in the way everyone acts around me. Just people turn into zombies the second I get close. They just pay a little less attention, or a little more if they're focused on something already. And people not doing anything just stare off into space more, or distract themselves. They always look straight through me, like I'm a ghost. Oh, I'm not, for the record. I'm obviously still alive, if people are seeing this. It took me a while to notice too. I mean, it's really not very obvious, even though it should have been to me. I guess I have some excuse. I used to live out in the sticks and didn't exactly talk to people on a daily basis. But I also used to pay very little attention to other people. You could say I outright ignored them. So I probably only have myself to blame. Maybe that's why I'm in this situation. They just return the favor in kind and stop paying attention to me. You might be wondering, If I'm this godlike invisible freak who, with their very presence, destroys the ability to perceive him, then how am I an urban legend? How does anyone even know I exist? It's because, by some amazing stroke of luck, there are cracks in this invisibility. I get the occasional person that jumps when they see me, out of the corner of their eye. They see me, just for that split second. That gives me hope. But, more importantly, even though people can't see me, they can still see the aftermath of what I do, even if it's delayed. The guy I punch feels a large bruise on his face a couple of minutes later, and writes it off as hitting himself when he tripped earlier. I take an item, or I move it, and people don't see me picking it up, but they notice it's missing some time later. And here's the important one. I can write something down, say, a note on a piece of paper, and people can read it. That's how you're reading this now. Done my best to make my presence known in this city. I make it really obvious when I'm squatting somewhere. I leave notes everywhere I go, telling people that I'm here. I move people's stuff around in obvious ways when I need to stay somewhere that has, for example, heat and a working shower. Most people think it's a hoax, and the slew of copycats around the city don't help shake that idea. But they know I exist, even if they don't think I'm real. That's better than not existing at all. I'm the Phantom, the Invisible Man. I take pride in that. Of course, I'm not self-centered enough to just talk about myself. While I'm perfectly happy just to tell my own story and put more proof of my existence out there, I came to a place like this, which means I should have a story to tell. One that'll get under your skin and into your head. I do have some stories like that. My situation puts me in a unique position to look into some of the other urban legends in this city. Stuff that makes my situation seem tame in comparison. I'll start with the one I have the most personal experience with. This one alone can give you a feel for how much worse it gets in my city. There's not a real name for them, but a lot of people call them spooks, or just ghosts. It's the kind of thing you'd read about online because, it's all stuff that's too easy to write off. Bumps in the night, shapes in the corners of your eyes, the distinct feeling that someone or something is watching you. Stuff everyone has experienced. But these are real. People who stay out too late at night in too deserted of an area disappear pretty often. I'd say 4 times out of 10. Most are never seen again. But occasionally a body does turn up. Mauled, like an animal had got to it. But security footage magically never seems to show anything, even if it's pointed directly towards where the body ended up. There are never any eyewitness accounts. Nobody even knows what they look like. But the aftermath of the situation is always painfully real and disturbing. Sound familiar? Yeah, it's hard not to believe all of that when you're living it. They're not like me, though. Well, they're invisible like me, but almost certainly by choice. I've never seen them, but I have heard them for a long time, since before I was like this. And I came dangerously close to one of them more recently. It was relatively recently, but it was still a good while ago now. If I had to be specific, maybe about 6 months. It was raining, so I was sleeping in an old abandoned house in one of the less populated parts of town. And that's when I heard it. Heard it smash through the window, which woke me up and put me on full alert. Heard its shuffling steps as it walked around the living room area. Heard it talk. There was no emotion to its voice, no intonation or specific volume. It was plain, not whispering, not yelling. Just saying, in a level tone, the word, hello, over and over. Every couple of seconds, it would repeat the word. It was faint, but as it got closer to the room I was in, I could hear it better, on the other side of that door. There was a strange sort of resonance to it, like multiple people were speaking the word at the same time. No, not even that. It was like the same person was speaking the word at multiple different pitches all at once. It didn't sound like a person. It sounded like something badly pretending to be a person. Eventually, I heard it scramble out through what I guess was the window, and the sound of its voice fade off into the night. Oh, I didn't sleep that night. I waited for the sun to rise and the rain to stop, and I booked it. They aren't human, or even anything that could have once been a human. They couldn't be. Nothing with the slightest understanding of humanity could be that poor of an imitator. Of course, not all of the legends in my city are that scary. Not to the average person, anyways. We have our alleged ghost hunter here, a certain Mr. Aroñez. Big guy, wears a lot of brown. It's mostly common knowledge that when there's weird shit going on, you call him to fix it. Now, he's not some government agent or anything. He's kind of just a guy. But he's the real deal. How do I know? Because he's seen me. Or, more accurately, because he's attacked me. I had the pleasure of meeting him when I was staying in an older woman's house. This was before I started leaving notes, and maybe the reason I do that now to begin with. I'm really not sure what tipped her off. Between the missing food, the mysterious self-activating shower, and the chair I accidentally broke. But she figured out something was up pretty quick. Yeah, I wasn't too bright. Although, I would like you to keep in mind this happened before the other incident. When the police turned up and found nothing, she of course called the one person who could maybe deal with it. He comes in wearing his brown suit and suitcase, and of course he sees me instantly as soon as the lady opens the door. He warns her to get out of the house immediately. I'm dumbstruck here, seeing as he's the first person to even acknowledge my existence in months. So, I tried talking to him. He just opens up his case, pulls out a fire extinguisher. Before I can even get another word out, he sprays me with it, and then shoves me with it hard, sending me halfway across the room. Now, I should mention, this guy is kind of jacked. His arms look bigger than my head. While I'm sure some of it is fat, a lot of it is muscle. That said, and I'm pretty proud of this actually, I managed to topple him over with a hard shove of my own. And of course, then is the point where something finally clicks. I guess because he yells, "Wait!" at me. But by that point, I'm halfway down the block and almost out of the neighborhood. He didn't chase me, probably because his job was just to get me out of the house. Overall, I don't take it too personally. He saw me, but I don't think he saw me. I've seen him around a couple of times since, and he's looked at me. He hasn't tried to attack me again, but he also hasn't tried to talk to me or anything, so I don't know for sure what he sees now. And I mostly wrote about that to lighten my mood a bit. It's nice to think that there's someone out there who can help people with all of this weirdness, even if he can't necessarily help me. But there's also people out there who just make it worse. Yes, there's a cult in my city. Now, they've never been convicted of anything strictly illegal, but they're not exactly the friendliest bunch. They call themselves the Four Seers. They sell fortunes to people. That's about the most interaction you'll ever have with them. They keep to themselves. You never see them in the city unless they're doing business. And the thing is, their fortunes are crazily accurate. They can't give you exact details, but if they say something is going to happen, then it's almost certain it will. Now, they can't tell you the winning lottery number, but if you bring them a list of people who bought a ticket, then they'll tell you who's most likely to win. They can tell you which of your friends have betrayed your trust recently. They can tell you how you'll die, but not when it'll happen. Obviously, they're pretty popular among the more shady parties. Politicians looking for an unfair edge on their opponents. Criminals trying not to get caught. Those kinds of people. The police don't get involved. Rumor has it they helped the police catch a serial killer a long time ago by giving them a list of potential victims. And since then, they haven't messed with the Foreseers. A lot of people have been going missing in this city, and rumors spread fast. The Foreseers charge for their fortunes after they're meant to have come true, probably to rope people in. People who don't or can't pay up tend to be one of those unfortunate souls that never makes it home. There's all kinds of rumors about dark rituals and gang involvement with them, probably not completely unfounded. I've never dealt with them personally, so I can't back any of that up. But when you hear enough bad things like that, at least some of it has to be true, right? The final thing I've got is the Texas Plains unicorn. This is more something kids talk about in school than a legend people take seriously around here. But I think, given everything else I've talked about, it's worth mentioning at least. There's a string of strange, unexplainable deaths that go all the way back to the 1800s. People crushed and mangled overnight in the empty stretch that surrounds the city. There's never been an explanation for how or why this stuff happens. Bodies just turn up. This in itself is one of the town's big mysteries. One that would certainly be a tourist trap and a fun discussion for horror fanatics, if people weren't still dying this way. And because of this, people don't generally hike or camp around here, just to be safe. The unicorn is almost more of a dark joke than anything else, but it's a supposed explanation for those deaths. The rumor is that, supposedly out in the outskirts of town, there's a horse-like monster that roams the plains. One that spends the days stalking its victims, learning their patterns and waiting until they're completely alone, and then it strikes. Its appearance is the one thing people can never settle on. One day it's a giant six-legged unicorn, and the next it's a long-necked, hairless monstrosity. That's why people don't really believe in it. But some days, I get the feeling it isn't total bullshit. Living out there for a while really makes you paranoid. It's quiet and desolate. There were nights back then when I could have sworn I saw something out of my window. I don't really remember those days all too well anymore, though. Not with the insanity of my life in more recent times. Well, that's about everything I can think of as far as urban legends go here. At least, everything that isn't, oh, there's a ghost on the second floor of the high school type stuff. Well, I don't know if I'll post again. But if I do, keep an eye out.
Part 2.
So I wasn't expecting to post again. I figured that last one would be one and done. But you know what? I feel kind of drawn to this in a way. I had fun. The stories I have feel interesting enough to keep going, and believe me, I need to kill the time somehow. But if I'm going to continue this, then I think some introductions are in orders. I'm Marty. Not short for Martin because apparently my dad decided to be lazy signing my birth certificate. But I like it better this way anyways, so it's all good. I broke into my old house last night. Yeah, I'm sitting here writing this out on the new resident's laptop. Why, I hear you asking? Well, that's kind of a long story. I managed to get myself into a bit of trouble. A few weeks ago, a little after that last post, I tried to steal something from a certain cult. Yes, I can feel the palms landing on your face, but believe me, I didn't have any bad intentions. I wasn't just being an asshole and stealing for the sake of stealing. I'm not a petty thief like that anymore. I had some kind of plan in mind. Writing all of that out last night kind of forced me to think about the Foreseers again. I tried to forget how big a presence they have in my city most of the time. Just like you probably tend to ignore the fact that there's almost certainly criminal activity in your city. It's not fun to think about the shadier side of life like that. Not just people dying, people being killed for someone else's gain. No monsters and mystery, unless you count the police investigation and the person that pulled the trigger. That post reminded me of just how much I dislike these people. Yeah. In any other scenario, the Foreseers would be called a gang. They have ties to a lot of criminal stuff in the city, and some way of making people who cross them disappear without a trace. People who don't necessarily deserve it all the time either. And they haven't been caught, despite it being somewhat common knowledge to anyone who gives enough of a shit to look into it. Or maybe it's just common knowledge to me since, given my situation, I'm privy to hearing about things people only talk about behind closed doors. But the fact of the matter is that they pull this shit almost completely unchallenged, with no one really looking into them. The only reason they're not labelled as a gang outright is that they actually believe what they peddle, and somehow that makes people more reluctant to do anything about them. Well, it gets under my skin. Maybe it wasn't the smartest idea, but I decided to play hero. Considering they couldn't see me anyways, it's not like I was putting myself in any real danger, right? So, I made my way over to one of the Foreseer markets, dingy places off on the edge of town. I call it a market. It's not really anything as fancy as that would imply. Just a few stands in a big dirt lot. No real buildings because they move around from time to time. They sell a bunch of voodoo junk like protection charms, and have a couple of food trucks. Fun to look through and a bit of a tourist trap, but honestly not much more than a glorified gift shop for our city. The fortune teller's tent is the sole exception, and they don't try too hard to hide that fact. It's the crown jewel of the whole place, no matter how and when they set it up. Getting there took me a while. You've got to imagine how hard it is just to walk places now without getting hit by a car. I'm basically forced to take the emptier back roads, like neighborhoods, and when I'm forced to go across one of the busy streets, I have to be smart about it. Crosswalks are obviously out. The amount of people who will just run a red light if they think no one's around is a lot higher than you'd think, cameras or not. I usually just cross when there are no cars nearby, or wait for the light to be red when there's a decently large group and go behind them. Being the way I am makes getting places a lot harder than it should be. That and the fact that I was going mostly on foot made the trip take almost an entire day. The plan was simple. When I got there, I break in and steal a bit of cash while making it as obvious as possible that something is stolen. Then I stand around and wait for them to do something about it, and follow the important-looking people using my situation to my advantage. I wasn't really sure what I'd do from there. Figure out why they don't get caught when they disappear people, probably, and take some steps to undo their efforts. Yeah. Simple. Problem was, it was the middle of the night by the time I got there, and I realized they didn't have cash registers or anything. They wouldn't. I was stupid to even think they would in the first place, with booths out in the open like this. They probably kept their money on their person after any kind of sale. Well, I didn't know what to do. I searched through the market stands for anything valuable enough that they might care if it was missing, and turned up zilch. Not a thing worth touching, unless I counted the stands themselves. There was no one even around right now anyways. No one to see whatever I stole. I leaned against the metal side of a truck in a food court-style area inside, looking over the market one last time. My eyes caught on the large purple tent in the center of it all. It was done up in a generic gypsy fortune teller style, even though they're all very Texan and white as the driven snow. It was all more for the effect than anything else, probably. They didn't need any of it. In that moment, I knew what I could steal that they might care about, and I knew exactly what I could do to catch their attention. Inside of that tent was a giant religious relic of theirs, a massive cross with a big eye in the center of it, 1.5 feet tall by 1 foot wide, maybe 2 inches thick, and done up in fake gold-plated aluminum, the symbol of their church. God, even that's generic as all hell. Cheap too, but I was going to steal it because it was the only thing in there that wasn't fake. Well, to them at least. I knew where it'd be. I'd been there once before. It'd be hanging above the table dead center in the tent, above the bullshit crystal ball and the fancy woven tablecloth. I was spiteful. I wanted to piss these people off and make it obvious that I was trying to. I started by grabbing a big thing of cooking oil and a grill lighter from the food truck. At the front of the tent, I poured a whole bunch of it into the sand and turned it to mud. Then I caked it onto my boots and stepped into the tent. I poured cooking oil behind me as I walked, in a big circle around it, and then I climbed onto their table with their precious fancy tablecloth and spread as much mud as I could onto it. After I co-opted the cross from the hook it was hanging on, I walked straight out of the tent and lit it on fire. The blaze grew a lot faster than I was expecting. I had to jump back. Not 5 minutes later, I heard the sound of a truck driving up to the market. 3 guys stepped out. The first was a scrawny, dopey-looking guy with big ears and shaggy hair, wearing a red jacket with white stripes down the sides. He looked bored, like he didn't want to be here. He'd stepped out of the passenger seat, hands in his jacket pockets the whole time. Next was the driver. He was definitely the one in charge. He looked intimidating. He wore a black tank top, jeans, and black army boots. He had a tattoo on the left side of his neck, a green eye. Not a very detailed one, just a simple eye shape filled in with green, with a black dot in the center. His hair was short, black and combed back, and he was mad. I got some smug satisfaction in that. I'd have also called him a big guy, if the third guy hadn't stepped out. Now, the third was a musclehead. No, that's not right. The third was a living wall of meat that someone had painted a face onto. The first thing that I noticed as he stepped out of the back seat was that his hands were massive. He looked like he could crush someone's skull with one arm tied behind his back. The second thing is that he was completely bald. Not just on his head, but his body hair too. I could tell it was shaved. I could see it growing back in certain spots. He was wearing the same thing as the boss guy, and standing a few feet away, completely expressionless. He scared me. I was thanking whatever God had blessed me to be the way I was in this situation here. I realized the scrawny one was the only one not getting with the program, wearing the same outfit as the rest. But when I looked closer, it turned out he was. He was just wearing it under his jacket. The boss yelled out to the other two, confirming my suspicions that he was indeed the boss. "Search the place. They're probably still here. If you let them get away, it's your ass." Those two split up to look through the stands in the market, while he walked towards the tent, getting as close to the fire as he could manage. He peeked inside through the door flap I had left open, and I saw his hands clench hard. I wanted to be able to laugh at him, relish the fact that I pulled one over on the shittiest people in the city, and in the fact I was going to keep doing it, but I couldn't. I felt weirdly guilty. I took the joy out of this one for me. Not for them, of course. I knew exactly what they'd done, and they didn't deserve any guilt. But what if they blamed the wrong person or something, and I couldn't save them? What if they started doubling down on how shitty they were, when they couldn't find me, to send a message to everyone else? What if they just moved to another city where nobody would be able to deal with them? Oh, I had so many regrets bubbling up now over this stupid plan. He straightened back up before yelling in a booming voice. "Listen, we know you're still there. You can't have gotten far." He was right in front of me as he said it, looking straight through me like I was a ghost. "We're gonna find you for doing this, whoever you are, and then we're gonna gut you nice and slow. And after that, before you bleed out, we're gonna feed you to the horse. You know the one we're talking about." He damped up his slight Texas drawl to a ridiculous level. He probably thought it made him sound scarier. Just made him sound like a redneck. But then again, he hadn't talked much before. I had no proof he wasn't one. I hit him hard across the face with a cross, mostly out of spite. Every word coming out of his mouth that pissed me off, made my blood boil. Thinking about what he'd done to so many undeserving people, what he was promising to do to me for daring to be against that. Figured I'd at least leave a nasty bruise on his face for him to find later when he left. Well, that's not what happened. Instead, he let out an intimidating "fuck" through gritted teeth right after the impact, and stumbled back a couple steps. It caught me so off guard that I almost tripped. I just froze in place, staring at him. He looked around for whoever had done it, but he unfocused whenever he looked towards me, which was good. It meant he didn't see me. "Fuck," he muttered, still gritting his teeth hard. The other two came running back at the noise. The boss guy was holding his hand up to his nose now. I heard the dopey guy whisper something to him, and he responded a little more nasally this time. "I don't know. It was like... He stopped. It seemed like he was thinking about something for a second. He put his hand down, took a deep breath, and then did a weird cross-eyed movement. Then he closed his eyes. When he opened them again and looked around, his eyes focused on me, just for a second. Everything was still for what probably felt a lot longer than it was. He shifted his whole body towards me in a split second. I ran. He started chasing after me, along with the two goons behind him. They were probably much faster and more in shape than I'd been in my entire life, but they were still having trouble keeping up with me. The boss guy was the only one that could actually see me, and he was losing sight whenever I took a turn or moved too erratically. When he couldn't see me, the goons were just left floundering. I took advantage of that and jumped through the window of one of the stands. I lost them. I listened intently while waiting for them to leave. They stopped a little ways away from the one I was in, panting. "You know, she's the only one who'd do that." I assumed it was the dopey-looking one. The voice didn't seem like it would fit the musclehead. He stopped talking for a bit to take in more breath. "Abby's the only one who could hit you like that without being seen. I say she's the only one who'd stand up to you after an intimidation act like that, too." "Nah, she's back at the stilts, locked in a cell for now," the guy with the tattoo shot back. "And she's not dumb enough to pull something like this. She'd be more subtle about it. That's why we locked her up to begin with." "Did they get away?" This had to be the muscle guy. His voice sounded like someone tied a brick to his balls when he was younger. "Was it Abby?" "No, and no. Pretty sure it was a man, and I doubt they got away so easily. We only just lost him, I think. But we need to get back. I wasn't expecting one of them. We don't have time to deal with that. Let's just call the horse." The southern drawl had crept back into his voice slightly. "Let's get back to my sister before she actually pulls something herself." And with that, he whistled. loudly. Then they started booking it back to their truck. I listened and waited until the sound of their truck faded off into the distance. Then slowly, I crawled out from my hiding place. I heard what sounded like the truck driving back again almost immediately after I got out. I wanted to slap myself. Of course it was a trick. They were just trying to lure me out. Still, I started running. Except I noticed that the sound was wrong. It sounded like the truck from before, but not quite. The best way to put it would be off-key, like someone was playing the sound of the truck on a broken speaker. And behind that was a loud sort of thumping noise, like the back of the truck was full of rocks or something. And then, in an instant, it was like a sandstorm had blown through. Dust was everywhere, stands were being sent flying, and the fire from the tent had gone out. I started running as fast as my legs could carry me. I was still worn out from when I'd been chased before, but the adrenaline carried me through. When I looked back, I couldn't see anything. Just a trail of destruction left behind. Whatever was back there didn't seem to be following me. It was just tearing up the marketplace, knocking things down. It was completely invisible in the same way I was. But it was not like me. It wasn't human. It was big and strong enough to knock over one of the food trucks like it was nothing. And behind it, where it should have left footprints, there were just large cannonball-shaped holes in the dirt. Round, smooth, and bigger across than my head, if not larger. Probably much larger, since I was seeing them at a distance. I ran into the desert and I didn't stop. I had nowhere else to run. It had come from the road, and I wasn't confident enough in my invisibility now to try and walk past it. I just kept running further into the desert through the night. By the time the sun had risen, I'd finally made my way through, back into something that resembled civilization. I recognized where I was. My old house. By pure lucky coincidence, I'd gone in a circle around the city instead of just out into the desert. I could crash there, and I'd been planning to head there anyways. I had something important stashed there just in case, from before all of, this. So I decided to sneak inside under the new guy's nose. There were 2 people out front. I realized, almost a second too late, that one of them was a certain Mr. Aronye. I quickly ducked behind a big rock so he wouldn't see me. He was carrying a tall, lanky guy with glasses, who was slowly limping his way inside. I would have found it funny under normal circumstances, because Aronye is a bit on the short, chubbier side, and this guy was like a walking tree. I actually do find it a little funny now that I've had a chance to calm down. But at that moment, I just wanted to get inside, think on everything I'd just seen, and take a long nap. I waited for the stray ghost hunter to get in his car and drive off, before walking up and trying the door. It was locked, obviously, but I knew my house inside out. And I knew what wouldn't be locked. The second floor window. There were no locks on it. It was a bit of a risky climb, but one I'd made more than once when I was a little short on rent and Joey was trying to kick me out. And, well, that's about it. Now I'm here in the basement with a borrowed laptop, typing out everything that's happened to me in the past day or so. I'd stashed a lot of stuff here, in an old box hidden behind the water heater. But the important thing I mentioned was a gun, an old revolver and a case of ammo. I have a lot to explain about myself that I'll probably need to get into, like why I have this in the first place, but not right now. For now, just know that I need it, that I might be dead without it. They can see me. Me. So, I need to be able to defend myself, especially since they still have their trump card, that horse. My plan may have gone off the rails and into the deep end, but at the end of the day, I succeed in what I was trying to do. I figured out how they're getting away with murder. I know exactly what horse they were talking about now. Realistically, there's only one thing it could be. How many giant invisible monsters could there be in one city? It was the Texas Plains unicorn. And I have to kill it.
Okay, everyone, I am ill. Seriously ill. Oh, my God. You can probably hear from the deepness of my voice. It's a crying shame I don't have the energy to do any more recording now because, yeah, my voice is at kind of depth and I would love it to be at all the time. But not down to what I would like it to be anyway, to be honest with you. Yeah, so, yeah, that's it. I might be back at the weekend. Just feeling terrible. Flu from hell. I feel like I've been run over by a car. But I'm doing my best to get back into doing stories very soon. Till then, my dear friends, hope you're all feeling well. Better than I am, anyway. Well, yeah, till the next time, very, very sweet dreams, and bye-bye.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. Really means a lot to me and to the author of the story, of course. Well, if you want to know more about me, I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can download my music on SoundCloud. I've got a Patreon if you feel like. Throw me $1 or $2. Very much appreciated. And of course, on Reddit, I have a place where you can leave stories if you want me to read one that you've written. Well, hoping to see you all again very soon. Till then, sweet dreams. Bye-bye.